Hey everyone, we're back with the fireplace in the background, so you already know your burning questions are going to be answered now. So this is part 2, and we're going to start off with a question from Rob Brown 22261. And Rob has a question about weakfish on the island. Were there more weakfish in this spring's reports than usual, and do you think they're making a comeback? My favorite word is comeback in fishing industry. Fish are making a comeback, they're thriving, populations are going up. Wouldn't you like to see that for a majority of the species that you target? Recently, we've seen a lot of weakfish being caught throughout New Jersey and New York, especially in the bays, all across the region. Estuaries, bays, the rivers, the canals, everything. Lots of anglers reported fish between 6 to 12 pounds being caught, and I even had a run-in with some weakfish that I don't want to remember this story because it's traumatizing, because I've never successfully landed a weakfish the spots I've been fishing because it's a little tricky. But there have been some weakfish around, and if I close my eyes, I can see the weakfish that, they get the name weakfish so that they got weak jaws. I can see the weakfish that it's hooked, popped out of its mouth just as I was about to flip it. But I don't want to think about that. I do want to think about how the fact that they're becoming more, more as a bycatch. There's more around, which is great. And the one big thing where, like for Rob, he wants the species to come back. A big thing that you want to make it like your mantra is be the change that you want to see. That's my favorite quote. Be the change that you want to see. If you want to see a certain species bounce back, advocate for them. So what does that mean for like the weakfish or other species? It means that you have to conserve wildlife. You can donate to these foundations that protect the areas that these fish spawn in or they thrive in, like the estuaries and the back bays and everything like that. You can teach others about the species, like tell your local fishing buddies about them and talk about how the population is practically killed off and how it's somewhat making a comeback, more noticeable fish being caught. Like, hey, this is the start of something good, let's keep it happening. What are we doing now that is making the population bounce back, and let's keep doing it so they really bounce back. And a big thing, even like better yet, if you can get your hands on them, which you can through Gray Fish Tag or some of the fishing clubs, is tag the species. You can catch a weakfish, you can tag it real quick, get measurements, release it, and you can track to see where that fish goes so you know, hey, they're going back here to spawn, like this one was caught here, it traveled this far. You can see the distance that they take to live and thrive in an environment that's now theirs. So be the change that you want to see. So thank you, Rob, for that question. Now, this next one, this is in fact not me using this username, but it is a great one. Total Noob Fishing 1753. And Total Noob asks, what are your favorite gulp collars and gulp bodies that you use when targeting fluke? So I'm very stubborn, like many other anglers. When I get a color that works, I stick with it. So a lot of the times I'm not even using gulp. I use other manufacturers such as American Bait Works, Fish Bites, and Q8. They provide the same area rug, feet sweeping, doormat slaying colors for you anglers to use out there, and those work best for me. So when I'm fluking off the surf, I use a 4-inch pink glow or white glow bait. Sometimes I'll use the shrimp shape, I'll use a jerk shad or a mullet. It all depends on where I'm fishing to better match the bait. If I'm fishing not with a sinker, like the bucktail teaser rig, sometimes you take the bucktail off and put a sinker on. But if I'm not, I'll use either a bucktail or a naked jig head. Some work better than others with the presentation. Like on a shrimp, I would use a naked jig head compared to a bucktail because you can see that profile better. So when I fluke off the boat, I strictly use a bucktail teaser rig. And I'll use a 6-inch grub or a nemesis, depending on where I'm fishing, and if there's sea bass around, I do not want them destroying a nemesis because those are they're a great bait to use and they're kind of expensive. But that goes on my bottom bucktail. And on the teaser, I will use like a 5-inch grub in that same pink glow or white glow colors. Sometimes I get to the point where like I'm legit at the bottom of the barrel, like I have no more gulp left in my container, or those colors that I like to use, I'll switch to a funky color because you don't know, sometimes that finicky bite, like will turn off and they'll be crushing it on that one color that no one uses, that you happen to have left over from a trip from 3 years ago that you bought because you thought it was pretty. Like, that's me. I like the glittery paint, so I'll buy it, but then I never use it. But there have been trips where I've used the leftovers and they've worked. So it's really all about, like, the more you go, the more you know. So like certain colors work in certain areas. If it's dirty water, use chartreuse, stuff like that. If it's deeper waters, you can use glow because it glows and they see that and they're attracted to it. So that is the end of the part 2. We're gonna do one final one next week and we're gonna get right through it and your questions will be answered. So stay tuned and I'll see you guys next week.